Coming over the hills, you can see why Ramsbury is known as a village in the valley. Glancing across, it becomes apparent that Ramsbury and Axford are linked by the winding threads of the River Kennet. During the last century, a steep cutting was made to take the road which made Ramsbury and Axford one parish. Ramsbury with its population of approximately 2,000 and Axford 150. In 909 AD, Ramsbury was a bishopric. The village was dominated by the manor house, the church, and in latter years a wych elm, which was reputed to be over 350 years old and was recently replaced by an oak tree. Now at the beginning of the next millennium, we wanted to show what the villages have become. We joined the village at a corner known as the Nap and turned left to the square with the new oak tree. The tree in the square is still very much the centre of the village and is such a meeting place. Legend had it that when the old elm was felled, the village would suffer great misfortune. Such was the division as to the old tree's fate that the village appeared in the national press and television. But practicalities won the day, and the curse of the Elizabethan witch Maud Toogood died with the elm. A bus and cars bring children into the popular and thriving primary school. They wear sweatshirts embroidered with the Ramsbury emblem, a raven, taken from the name of Ravensbury for Ramsbury. We know of 3 village families with children at the school who have grandparents and parents who also attended there.
We have enjoyed over the last few years quite a number of successes in terms of media coverage and league table successes. I put that down largely to several factors. We've always had a very, very committed, positive staff. We also work, of course, with a very good group of children. The children from Ramsbury come to us from a very advantageous background, and it's always been our policy to do the very best we can with them, and I hope we'll continue to do so in the future.
The Bell is a fine oak pub and restaurant where the coach horses were changed on their way between London and Bath. It shares the centre of the village with diverse and unusual businesses such as the Arab Horse Society, a software business and a goldsmith. In fact, the parish of Ramsbury contains over 50 commercial enterprises. The Ramsbury Building Society, now the Portland, keeps the original carpet to remind us of the old logo, the Ramsbury tree. On the edge of the square is Jenny Whiting, aromatherapist and beautician.
I came to Ramsbury into these premises about 15 years ago. I started on my own. I'd already got a practice. I'd been practicing at Baden, and then these premises became vacant, and I started just with half of what I've got now, just working on my own, doing aromatherapy and beauty treatments. I had a Clarence agency, which was a very important thing in the development of my business because that company grew as I got busier. And then I did an aromatherapy training course 15 years ago to add to my massage, and started making my own products, all the bath oils and the massage oils, particularly for clients who'd been for consultations. And then I was joined by Patsy Jennings. She's been with me 8 years, and now my daughter's working with me as well. She's been qualified for 4 years, so it's a 2-generation business now. And it works very well in Ramsbury. We have lots of nice local clients, and we hope that we're a helpful part of their lives, really.
I call myself a designer goldsmith, and it really involves making jewellery out of gold, designing and making jewellery out of gold. A few years ago I was asked by a chap if I would make a model of his house. It was a significant item for the family, and he wanted something which could split up into jewellery, and he could give each member of his family a piece of jewellery. So I made this model of his house, and it takes apart into 6 pieces of jewellery. The roof comes off and is actually a brooch and is worn like that. And then the front corner here is a pendant locket, a pair of cufflinks on the side here, a ring at the back, in the back section, and a pair of earrings which were actually the kitchen block at the back. From my point of view, it is a very nice quiet place to think and to work, and I like, obviously, as I say, going up to London, I like the hustle and bustle, but it is a wonderful, you've got to have somewhere quiet, a little bubble. I mean, this is a little quiet area here, if you like, in which I work, and that's the same in the broad terms, in terms of Ramsbury, really. It's a little area in which to work.
Hill Stores has survived many threats of closure. Not so the former hardware store, now Lampart's, a specialist in lighting, or Franklin & Sons, the oldest business in the village, founded in 1900. Midway Stores flourishes further up the village, and Peter Nanda is open 7 days a week to supply us with anything from biscuits to batteries. In the High Street we find the busy post office, the hairdresser and, unusually for modern times, a real butcher, Gilbert Mills.
Can I have a pound of pork sausages, please?
Yes, okay, yeah, certainly.
For a change, I'll have the pork and garlic.
Pork and garlic.
Yes, please.
Right.
Thank you. I was thinking coming down the road, Gilbert, of all the sausages your father used to make. We wouldn't have had this choice then, would we?
That's right. There's one we wouldn't sell now that we did then in wartime, was whale meat sausages.
Really?
And even with the shortage of meat,
Yes.
nobody would eat them.
Wouldn't they?
I remember a scout camp, Gilbert wouldn't eat his father's sausages.
Wouldn't he?
No.
How long was your father here for then, Gilbert? When did he first come to Ramsbury?
Well, he and my mother moved into the village in 1938.
Yes. And you came and joined the firm when?
37 years ago.
Yeah, I think we'd miss you, Gilbert, if you weren't here.
Yeah, I expect a lot of people keep saying, well, how long are you going to stay on? And, well, I'm getting very old, you know, as you can see now. I smile at the camera. Yeah, but certainly going to be here for a while, yeah?
Yes, that's good
Yeah.
news. That's very good news for both of you. Yes, good. Thank you, Gilbert. I'd better pay you now, hadn't I?
That's right. And it comes to a chicken, sausages, or £7.50.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How many villages have a library? Ours has moved several times during the last 25 years, from its beginnings in the Institute and is now situated in the old Salvation Army Hall. It's rare to find it empty during opening times. The High Street leads to Axford about 1.5 miles further on, where the well-known Smiths of Axford coal yard operates. Peter Smith.
Father started the business in about 1932, and he kept going right up until the beginning of the war, when he lost all his staff. So he then carried on with cattle transport, etc. And then when my oldest son left school, we started back into the wood and coal business, and we've been at it now 20 some odd years. I have two sons running, doing the coal business. Well, we cover a big area on the logs, probably about 25-30 mile radius. So we do cover a big area, yeah.
Do your sons have regulars, or do they fight over who goes where?
Well, I don't think they fight, but they do have their own rounds. They keep it all separate. One goes in one direction and one goes in the other, and they don't tread on one another's toes.
You mentioned that last year was not so good as far as you were concerned, and you spent idle time doing an interesting job in the forest.
Well, the idle time was spent
Being idle.
not being idle. We were doing a job down the Grand Avenue, taking out the trees nearest to the road so as to make a bigger arch in the future. So it'll be heritage.
Right, there's one last thing I want to ask you. Whenever I saw wood, all the sawdust goes in my shoe. What's your hint to try and avoid that?
Well, put your feet in black plastic bags, or wear longer trousers so that they don't go in your boots like mine.
Thank you very much,
You're
Peter.
welcome.
Ramsbury boasts one of Europe's leading specialist medical companies, MSB. Cliff Andrews.
MSB was formed in 1982, so at that stage it was a very small company, just my wife and myself. MSB stands for Medical and Surgical Bioadhesives, and all our products actually utilise a bioadhesive. MSB products are used in theatres, in intensive care units, coronary care units, paramedic situations, and majority in the UK, because we're market lead, majority of the UK hospitals actually do use MSB products. We have obviously the facility here in Ramsbury. We opened our facility last December 1997. But prior to that, we opened up a facility in Singapore. So we also have manufacturing capability in Singapore, where the sales and marketing operation is also centred. All the administrative business is actually carried out here at Ramsbury. The number of people that are employed on this site numbers 58, and in Singapore we have 42. And in First Water at Warwick University Science Park we have 17, 6 of whom are PhDs and in fact are involved in the research of hydrogels. As a company we export to most major countries in the world. We actually started our export program in 1993, just 5 years ago. to date, 65% of our turnover actually comes from the export markets. This is only possible by having an excellent team, not only just of management, also of production people, most of whom in actual fact come from the Ramsbury or Ramsbury area.
Just round the corner in Back Lane is Laurel Garage. Bernard White.
If they had a car, it was probably a Ford or a very basic model, which gave quite a bit of trouble really. There was always problems with back axles, gearboxes. We reconditioned engines, replaced running boards. It's surprising how many that we had to re-roof because they were letting water. But today, with their computer systems, it's changed beyond belief. Some vehicles are relatively easy, such as the Morris Minor. You can buy nearly everything you require. But some of the older vehicles, where they don't have clubs don't have spares, and you have to turn your hand to either making them or getting them made, and so on.
I hear you had an interesting experience with the boathouse.
Well, my father did. In the middle 50s, I believe he purchased the remains of Ramsbury Manor Boathouse, which the timbers, some of the timbers and the corrugated iron were used in the construction of our first workshop, which is the one next door to here. And of very good quality was the corrugated iron and the timber. Probably better than the stuff we added to it, the materials we added, and stood the test of time. We started with 2 new pumps, which probably lasted 20 years. They were probably very troublesome, and the pumps that are in place now were bought second hand. I'm not sure where my father bought them from, but they're Avery Hardles, and they're said to be the most reliable and most accurate pumps probably ever produced. Weights and measures speak very highly of them. I sprinted for probably 8 years, and during that time I took a world record, the standing mile world record for 500cc. I took 2 national records, the flying quarter and the flying kilometre. I achieved an average of 175 mile an hour on the machine, and so on.
We're an antiquarian bookshop which Mrs. Pinchy started in 1954, and we're called Heraldry Today. Many of our customers have been with us 20, 30, 40 years, but we also now have a lot of new customers from our website and the internet. We don't get a lot of visitors, but we do get a few, because it's mainly by mail order, the books. But it's a beautiful spot for people to come, and it shows the books off at a good advantage.
The river has always been a dominant part of the 2 villages.
A few questions?
Certainly. What's this, a dodge from school today, is it?
Yes.
It is.
Waterkeeper Archie Barrett.
What is it you want to know?
Well, we have to do a project on the river.
Oh, yes, yes.
Would you mind answering a few of our questions?
Certainly. What would you want to know?
Well, we've heard about waterlords. Can you please tell us what they are?
Waterlords? Well, it was a very old name for the lord of the manor. And like from Marlborough, you'd have the Marquis of Ramsbury. He owned it right down to Stitchcombe. And then you had the Burdett estate, which was for Francis Burdett. And he owned it from Stitchcombe right to the Liddicoat boundary, which is at Knighton. Then from there on was Sir Ernest Wills at Liddicoat. He owned it then right down to what we call the Chiltern Bridge. And then the Ward estate, they owned it from there to Hungerford. Now, they had total control of all the water in that area, those few men. And so each one had his own keepers, not keepers then. And should one let any weed or rubbish go down onto the other one, he would have been in trouble from his water lord. And that's what they were known as, water lords. I was born about half a mile down there. That's 73 years ago. And there was no abstraction from the river then, and all these fields would be underwater. And to get to school, very often, we'd have a boat, an old tin bar thing, that we would, right across the, if you know the Frockfield Ramsbury Road, that used to be flooded right across. And that happened every year.
An old tradition now revived, the boundary wall, has become a firm favourite with young and old. In May, 100 or so people, led by Ronnie Price, walked through beautiful countryside which is not usually accessible.
We won't hurt you. Ready now? And here we go. Up and down once, and down twice, and down 3 times. And that's how that you remember where the boundary is. Everybody will know where the boundary is in future years, right?
The walk ends at Littlecote House, one of the earliest and loveliest Tudor mansions in all England, now a successful hotel. The countryside around the villages is still mainly farmed. Much of the land is owned by large estates and rented out, but one of the smallest farms is worked by its owner, Bob Talmage of Love's Farm.
Well, Dad bought it when he got married at 21, and I've lived here ever since. So it's Yeah, quite a long time. I started, well, when I was Josh's age. At 7-year-old I was driving tractors, pushing hay into stationary balers, building ricks, and now it's progressed to, well, you can see the tractors.
Oh, Janet, well, when did you become interested in horses then?
Years ago, when I was 5, a neighbour had a couple of ponies. We used to play around with those while Mum wasn't looking.
Do you notice a difference in the countryside? For example, you know, the hedges, the bridleways, the wildlife.
Yes, there's a lot of wildlife out there, more now than I used to see as a child. I mean, I never saw a badger until the last few years. With set aside, that helps a lot. With the deer, they come out. But, and the buzzards, we've got a lot of buzzards up here now, never seen a buzzard before. But yeah, there's a lot of wildlife.
And you've always kept your hedges here, haven't you?
Very much so.
But you said...
They confide me if they want to make a hole anywhere. No, we keep the hedges. They're part of the farm.
And you've got 3 children. I mean, is this a good life to bring the children up in?
They love it. Freedom.
Yeah.
Free-range children. But no, it's good. Very good.
Summertime brings harvesting and the horticultural show. For its centenary in 1997, the traditional marquee was used on the sports field.
This morning we had to start at 8:30 helping the people unload the marquee and put it in the right place, all the doorways in the right place, and then go and fetch all the tables, the chairs from all the various halls all around the village and put them together, and then decide how many entries. The last entries were finished this morning, and then lay out the tables in the hope that the entries fit in the space. Okay.
Grab some chicken, please. It's cooked, it's partly cooked, Rose already cooked. Just basically keeping an eye on the tents. It's the youth club's part for the village. Just having a bit of a barbecue before we sort of have a sleep, and a few people have a walk round later on. We're staying here right through to the morning. And Chris has got to get up and go and do a paper round. Jeff's got to go off to work. Jane's got to go to work. We'll stay up, keep it going. Phil's just a bit of a groupie, really. Runaway sausage.
I've got a collection of vegetables, and I've got potatoes, carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, nearly everything I got. Yeah, or in the cucumbers, cabbages, dahlias, roses, and daisies and roses. That's what I got. Yeah.
You're going to win?
Well, I usually win 1 or 2 cups, so I hope to be this year. I should be successful again. But it's much more here today than what there usually is. You know what I mean? Because it's the centenary, isn't it? You see, so it's much better. More people here, more collections, so we're all right. As years ago when we started, when I started, of course all the cottagers, the village, what I call the cottagers, they were all grew their own vegetables then, and it was much more competition. But now you see that most of these people go to the shops and buy it, don't they? You see, it's cheaper and you haven't got to work for it, you see. But the thing that I like about it is I like growing nearly all my own vegetables because I get them fresh. You know what I mean? I nearly grow enough vegetables to last me the 12 months.
Normally we don't have a marquee. We often, we used to put it in the school, which isn't quite the same. But the marquee, and everybody, as you can see, has definitely pulled their weight, and we're going to have a lot of exhibits, and it's going to be lovely. Thank you very much. Can we get on?
Right. Let's have the beetroot.
No, wait a minute, because there's only got to be 6, so I'll take one off. Which one do I take off?
Elderflower is one of my favourites. It's a bit like a scented sort of German wine. But of course, in the marquee, it tends to warm up a bit and tends to be a bit more difficult to win with a white wine, which should be chilled. So a red wine often comes up with the top one. So it could be an elderberry, which is very popular, obviously, because there's plenty about, or hopefully my elderberry and pear.
Hello.
Thank you.
Could all exhibitors please clear the tent now? Could all exhibitors please
My flower judge hasn't turned up.
Oh, yeah.
Not very good now.
The poppy head actually is green. It's all green. With beads.
All round it, and then...
I'm just going to take its number so I don't get that lost.
Do you actually need it? Oh, I like this one actually.
Official opening of the Ramsbury Horticultural Society's Centenary Summer Show. God save the Queen!
Now then, we have with us, as you probably know, two very well-known people who are absolutely suited to this event, Ruth Mott and Harry Dodson. Well known to you. Well known to you, I'm sure, for their television programmes, which stood out from everything else because when they were on, you knew you were talking to people who were experts. And it's a great pleasure to see them here today and have the benefit of their knowledge with us for this short time. And I'll hand you over to them now.
I see Harry's going first.
Harry's going first. Right.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. I don't know why I'm speaking first, I'm sure. I'm sure the lady has far more to say than what I've got. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and it's been a tremendous pleasure the few moments that I've had to look through that wonderful marquee of exhibits. I know the show has had its ups and downs in the years since I've been in this area, but it's nothing unusual. Many of these village shows have taken tumbles in this last 20 or 30 years. But it's wonderful to see this one come back to this standard for this show. There's so many things at this show here today which have disappeared from village shows. The pictures and the needlework and the cookery and that sort of thing. I just can't get over it in the few minutes that I've been here to see that marquee so full of all the things that used to be in these village shows back in the late 20s and the 30s.
Half-price television sets down at beer time, folks. Half-price television sets.
Can we go back to the Ramsbury Manor Challenge Cup? Jim Smith. The Burdett Challenge Cup for the best collection of 5 kinds of vegetable. This is only awarded to somebody who lives in the Ramsbury area, is also Jim Smith. First, thank you all for coming. Thank everybody for all the effort they put in for helping to make this such a success.
The churches have always been landmarks of habitation, and Axford Church, although tiny, is no exception. With a loyal congregation, the church is always full at times of Thanksgiving.
We sing the hymn, We Plough the Fields and Scatter, 383.
Mighty
If anyone mentions wartime, those who remember think of the Americans stationed throughout the area. Indeed, Neville Shute based No Highway, one of his novels, on the area at that time and mentions the bell and Membury. A memorial stands in Axford Pub car park, and US servicemen returned to visit the village and former airfield at Ramsbury, where gliders were launched to take part in the D-Day land-ins.
Which squadron were you with there?
I was with the 86th Squadron as pilot, and I didn't get into Ramsbury too often, but when I did come in, the people were lovely, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Has it changed much since you were here
It hasn't
last?
changed a bit. Not a bit.
Now, what about the? You visited the airfield on Thursday. Did that? Did you remember anything from that?
Yes, I did. Of course, I was over here in 1993 and did about the same thing, and it hadn't changed much, you know. I wish they'd left a lot of the things standing. It would have been more meaningful.
That Roger's terrible.
Tony Giddins is almost as much a thread in Ramsbury as a river. He has a veritable treasure trove, gleaned from other people's rubbish, some recycled and some retained for a rainy day.
This old trolley's a devil, you know.
Mind of his own, is he?
Oh, he's like the donkey. Takes one out the other, they both let you know.
The Millennium Tapestry is a masterpiece of design and embroidery skill. It will surely go down in Ramsbury history as a work of art.
Methodist church where it ought to be, just further up into the middle. And it was so dominant that we couldn't possibly leave it there, so we had to bring it back and start again.
You know, if you should contact me. I think we should try both.
Well, we've got.
The recently refurbished Memorial Hall houses so many community events and of course endless fundraising efforts. This tabletop sale, for example, is to raise money for this video. The Ramsbury Methodist Church was founded by a family named Hind in the early 1800s, and although the congregation has declined in the latter years, it still has a stalwart nucleus and recently held a special covenant service in partnership with the Anglican Church.
The schoolroom behind the chapel is home to a thriving ballet school run by Mrs. Liz McIndoe. a scout troop, cub and beaver packs, a youth club and a daily preschool group meet in various other venues.
Sports in Ramsbury are very active and operate under the umbrella of the Recreation Centre. Turn of the century, the Bowls Club still maintains its independence and uses its original green by the river.
Perhaps I should introduce myself to some of you. I'm Peter Raper and I'm the chairman of the Ramsbury Community Bus Committee at the moment. I went along to a public meeting just to see what it was all about, and they elected me the chairman. So it's nice to meet you all. Nice to see some of the passengers and the drivers. Welcome. First of all, I'd like to hand over to Sue Findlay, chairman of the council, and she can explain what it's all about today.
Right. Well, it's very nice to be here for a second bus for Ramsbury. I think some of you were here when we had the first one 5 years ago, and we wondered, could we actually make a community bus work? And I think now we couldn't really imagine Ramsbury without our bus. I will introduce you to Ned Smith, who is the chairman of the Transport Committee at Kennet, and he will present us with the keys of our new bus.
Well, it's exactly the same as the old one, except a more up-to-date model. The biggest improvement is that we've now got a step on the bus that can be pulled out and used for our elderly passengers to get in much easier.
And do you find it difficult getting drivers?
No, at the moment we've got 14 or 15 volunteer drivers. They're all very good, all very willing.
I've lived in many, many villages and never have I come across anything like the flower. It's absolutely super.
And what do you use it for?
I use it for going to Swindon, Newbury, and of course there are 1 or 2 mystery trips which are super.
I have used the old one quite a lot.
And what do you use it for?
For the surgery, when I go to see Sister Whirl and Dr. Hanford.
This van and the service it provides is absolutely superb. We appreciate it thoroughly in the practice, not just the fact that it's more convenient, but the fact that the patients ultimately can get a better service, because they can come in here and things can be done here, whether it's by the doctors or the practice nurses, that perhaps couldn't be done at home. We're very lucky with our district nurses. They provide a super service at home, but there are extra things that can be done for the patients when they come in. I think the other thing that's a great benefit to anyone who comes in is the social side of things, because if you have somebody who's not very well at home, they often feel rather isolated. So if they come in the minibus, they come in and they talk to people, they see people, and if you're slightly old and frail, I think it's a good thing to mix and keep in the social world.
The range of facilities in Ramsbury is exceptional for a village. Is it these or the beauty of the village which attracts such an enormous list of families waiting to move into the village, creating Ramsbury's main problem? Too many cars. We hope not to see the day when parking interferes with the vital work of the fire engine and ambulance.
Well, that yellow thing is a dam, which we carry two of on our water carrier. It's basically used as a water supply for a prolonged instance. You can pump directly from the tanker, or you can use the dams as the water source for the incident, really. Farms where there's no available water source that is handy. Basically prolonged fires like that, really.
I joined the fire service here at Ramsbury in 1963, 17th of November. The tunic was issued to me. The belt, the line and the axe and poach were also issued to me. The boots they're old leather boots, but they weren't my issue. I had the rubber ones. And this is the uniform they wore in the 1800s. And this would be the captain's epaulette markings. He would be in charge of the appliance. Which is the bigger one. They used to have one here at Ramsbury, a comber like that. And when I joined in '63, I used to turn out in one like that.
The Royal British Legion is another important part of village life. Neville Mutter.
These games, which have been organised by the British Legion for the various clubs in the village, have been a great success because it's one occasion when the sports clubs, the tennis, the bowls, etc., meet here in the Legion, meet one another, which they never do normally during the season. There has been a secondary purpose, which is the fact that we play at the end for the Harefield Heart Foundation, but the main thing has been the social aspects of what the Legion does in the village. Starting with darts, we have two games of singles. 301, straight in, double out. 3 games, not the best of 3, but 3 games. Pool, 3 games of pool, straightforward pool. Bagatelle, every person knows how bagatelle is played. Again, 3 games, not the best of 3, 3 games, winner. Shove halfpenny, rather more skillful. Not everybody knows how to play shove halfpenny, but instead of putting 3 in a bed, to cut it down short, we have 1 in a bed, but 3 games of 1 in a bed and the same form. Basketballs, again, fairly simple. 3 shots, if you knock all 9 down, you put them back up, you go out the board, you come down, but you have to finish with the exact number. And again, that's the 3 games. We then go on to what we call the team darts. This time it is straight in, 801, double out. We finish up with a team game of pool where all 5 members of the team play pool.
The village is rich in talent and the Ravensbury players are always well supported, putting on 2 or 3 plays a year.
Are you married? No, you? I don't remember having marriages back there. But I do know when I work I'm always engaged. My fiancé is sometimes murdered, but there's always some other nice young man to come along and save me. Well now, aren't you surprised to see me?
That is an understatement.
It's going to be such fun being free for a bit. Well, we'll stick to your story.
The countryside looks bare in winter, but just as beautiful, as ploughing readies the land for next season. The sun in the west sinks slowly to rest, painting the land with its glory. The rose and gold, as the colours unfold, are part of the world's oldest story. The restoration of the church in 1891 revealed some Saxon crosses and coffin lids, which are today displayed in the northwest corner of the church. It is interesting to note that Ramsbury had a bishop long before Salisbury.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always.
Halfway through this last year of the century, we were honoured by a visit from His Royal Highness Prince Charles, attending a concert in the church. The Christingle service is always popular with children and their families, raising money for the Children's Society. The year ends in the traditional way.